Have you ever felt that intense, just crushing pressure in a job or a relationship, a commitment, whatever it is? It's a pressure that screams at you, you have to get out of here. Well, today we're going to dive into Psalm 32 to really understand what that pressure is telling us. And you might be surprised to find out that our first instinct, to escape, might be the very thing keeping us from the clarity we're looking for. Let's get into it.
Right off the bat, King David hits us with this incredibly physical description. I mean, you can almost feel that, can't you? The physical weight of it, the spiritual exhaustion of just carrying something heavy around. This isn't just being sad. He's talking about a deep internal decay, and it's all caused by an unaddressed conviction. It's the sound of a soul under an immense amount of pressure.
And here's the turn. This is so important. The real issue David is wrestling with here isn't just that he messed up. It's that he was completely misinterpreting the signal God was sending him. He felt all this pressure, and his first thought was, this must be a sign to run, when actually it was a call to deal with something right there, right where he was.
So this brings us right to the heart of it, the problem of pressure. What is conviction actually for, and how do we so often get its purpose completely backwards?
You see, God's conviction isn't some kind of punishment meant to make us miserable until we finally bolt. No, it's actually a loving, guiding pressure. It's designed to lead us toward obedience. But our hearts, well, our hearts often crave the shortcut, right? We just want immediate relief. And that craving sets up this huge internal conflict.
Let's use a photography analogy here because it fits perfectly. Our panicked desire to just escape is like motion blur in a photo. Yeah, it feels like you're doing something, you're moving, all right? But all it creates is a chaotic, unclear image. On the other hand, true, obedient movement, well, that's intentional. It requires you to be aligned with God's will, and it's the only thing that actually brings the picture of your life back into focus.
So how do we justify this motion blur in our own minds? Because we do. Our reasoning can sound surprisingly logical, even spiritual. This is what we're going to call the motion blur of escape.
This is usually where it starts. We look outward. We convince ourselves the problem is the situation, it's the place, it's that other person. The pain we're feeling is absolutely real, but we completely misdiagnose where it's coming from.
And right on the heels of that first thought comes this one, the seductive promise of relief. Escape dangles this carrot in front of us, this idea of a deep breath, of freedom from the weight, and man, it can feel like the only path to peace.
And then comes the spiritual justification. This is the most dangerous step. We take the language of faith and we twist it to bless our own desire to flee. We start telling ourselves that running away from our responsibility is actually what God wants for us.
But the psalm just flips that logic on its head. David's suffering, that feeling of his bones wasting away, it didn't come from his circumstances. It came from his resistance. His resistance to obeying God right where he was. The pressure was never external. It was internal all along.
Okay, so this really sets up the core battle that's happening inside our hearts. It's this conflict between two very different desires. On one hand, that longing for immediate relief, and on the other, the call to pursue true righteousness.
Just look at the contrast here. Relief promises a quick fix, an end to the pressure. It promises quiet, it promises rest. But the path of obedience, it offers something so much deeper, even if it's harder. It offers humility, it offers taking responsibility, and it offers a continued active dependence on God. One is an off-ramp, the other is the road itself.
So if running is the wrong answer, what is the right one? How did David finally break through this crushing pressure? Well, the psalm shows us a really clear turning point.
And bam, here it is. This is the solution. David didn't change his location, he changed his posture. He stopped running from the situation and turned toward God right in the middle of it. He didn't remove himself, he removed his resistance by confessing. And that is when absolutely everything changed.
You have to notice the order here. It is so critical. First comes confession, admitting the resistance. Then God's forgiveness comes and it lifts that weight. And it's only after that that guidance comes. You know, we so often want it the other way around. We want guidance first. We want God to bless our exit plan before we've even dealt with what's going on in our own heart.
This is the principle in a nutshell. It all boils down to this. We can't expect God to light up a path of escape when He's calling us to take one simple, obedient step right where we are. His guidance follows our alignment with His will, not our attempts to get around it.
To make this even clearer, there's another really powerful photography analogy that just perfectly captures this whole process. It's all about developing in the darkroom.
Think about it. A photograph needs time in the darkroom for the image to fully develop. If you expose it to light too soon, yeah, it feels like freedom, but what you actually do is ruin the image forever. The pressure of conviction is like that darkroom. It can be uncomfortable, for sure, but it's a necessary place where God is doing a developmental work in us. To flee it too early is to sacrifice the finished picture just for a quick moment of relief. So let's bring this all back home. How do we apply this? How do we find that true freedom and bring our own lives into focus? Well, it means we have to start asking ourselves some tough but really honest questions. First, we've got to examine our motives. What are we really after? Is our goal just to stop feeling the pressure, or is it to actually become the person God is calling us to be, right through this situation?
Next, and this one takes some guts to answer honestly, we have to challenge our own stories. Where have we put a spiritual-sounding label on a decision that, if we're being honest, is really just about running away from something hard?
And finally, let's get super practical. If you took that exit ramp today, what part of God's work in you would be left unfinished? What lesson would you just pack up and take with you, unresolved, right into the next situation?
Ultimately, the lesson of Psalm 32 is a call to courageous patience. True freedom isn't found by fleeing the frame that God has put you in. It's found when we choose to stay, when we choose that small, next step of obedience, and when we trust that God Himself will bring the final, beautiful picture into perfect focus.